print out numbers 1 through 100. I should say all numbers, meaning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. However, so I'm editing this on the fly. However, if the number is divisible by 3, instead of printing the number, instead of printing the actual number, we print -3. And if it's divisible by 35, we print -35. So it's going to be 1, 2, -3, 4, 5, -3, 7, 8, -3, 10, etc., etc. And when I get to 34, -35, and when I get to 70, it will also be -35. Does that make sense? It's a very arbitrary, but there actually is, it's good for you to know this, but I'll get to why later. Okay, so it's a weird set of instructions. So again, how would I approach this? And this is how I would approach this in real life. I would be like, first thing I want to do is let me just print out all the numbers 1 through 100. And then I'll worry about replacing the things divisible with the negatives. Let me just get that out. So, because you might try the other way. You might try to build it one line at a time, trying to solve the whole problem in one shot. That won't work. That's not how any developer does it. First, just build a simple version. That isn't the complete answer. So 100 times do, and I want to make a variable. I'll call it number. Number start at 1. Print number. Number equals number plus 1. And that prints out all numbers 1 through 100. Before I proceed with the rest of my solution, I forgot to point out something hugely important, which is this. Why did I put this number equals 1 before I even began the loop? As opposed to, I don't know, let me just put it at the beginning of my loop. What would happen if I did that? So every time we loop again, number gets reset to 1. Even though on line 8 it's going to be 2, when I start over again, number is going to be 1 again. So it's going to be 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. But it's actually going to print 1 100 times, right? Yeah?
I think it needs to know what it is before you hit 100 times. Like, first.
Yeah, because if I don't, then this is what happens, right? I end up getting a 1 100 times. Because every time I loop again, it resets number to 1. And then I print it, which is 1. And then even though I change it to 2 on line 8, when I get to line 6 again, I reset it to 1. And then print 1. So it's just a bunch of 1s. This is a huge gotcha. When writing loops, it's very easy to make this kind of mistake. You don't get an error, but you don't get what you want. So a lot of times, in many, many circumstances involving loops, very often there's some sort of variable that you need to establish before the loop even begins in order to make your magic work. So this is such an example. Okay, so I got this far. I got 1 through 100, which is more than halfway there, right? Now I need to replace the things divisible by 3 by -3, and the things divisible by 35 by -35. Okay. So I guess let me start with the 3s. I'm not going to solve all problems at once. So yeah, so an if statement would very much be appropriate. So I'm going to just start trying something, right? So if the number is divisible by 3, which we saw the way to do that is let's use the modulus operator and check if the remainder is 0. That's the way to say if a number is divisible by 3. Then print -3. Let me end there, okay? And this is not the right solution yet, but that's okay. This seems like I'm getting somewhere. Let's see what happens. 1 to -3. But I also end up saying 3. 4, 5, -3, 6. But in the problem, I don't want to write the 3 and the 6. I want it to be totally replaced by the -3. So now, that moves me on to the next step, which is, okay, so I don't want to, if I print a -3, I don't want to print this number. which is like, let me use an if-else statement to make that fork in the road. It's going to be either or. So I'll print -3, else, if it's not divisible by 3, then, and only then, will I print the actual number. And we'll try that. 1, 2, -3, 4, 5, -3. That part is working. I haven't solved the -35s yet, but does that make sense? Now, I moved fast through this because I'm very familiar with this kind of problem. But even though I knew what I knew, I still had a way of breaking it down and building it up. Any questions about this? Okay. Now let me solve the 35 part. So I'm going to, now remember this becomes like a three-way fork, right? And if you recall from yesterday, that's where else if is a really good tool. So I'll be if the number is divisible by 3, print -3, else if the number is divisible by 35, then print -35. And else, how do you translate this else in English? If it's not divisible by 3 and it's not divisible by 35, meaning any other number, then print the actual number. And here, instead of 70, I have the -35. Instead of 35, the -35, and this should be right. I'm not going to double check every number right now. I assume it's right.